She was the older child who loved to ride a snowmobile with her dad in Baffin Island. And later, she became that soldier who happily sat down to a bowl of goat soup with Afghan village elders, while her fellow soldiers looked on with horror because they couldn't even put their lips to the bowl. So I wrote a 2-day series. I was pretty happy with it, and I really thought, well, you know, I don't know how much I thought about it, but I got busy. I got back to work. I was doing my things. I didn't really realize, but I think I still blame Sally Goddard for having known that how great a story Nicola's life was, and for quietly, gently, persistently reminding me that, don't you think there's a big story in this? So in spring of 2008, just before the first Nicola Goddard fundraiser, Light Up the World, I heard from Sally and went over there, innocently enough, thinking I was just writing a nice promotional piece about their upcoming fundraiser. And really happy that I could help these guys out and you know, get a whole bunch of people in Calgary to their inaugural event. So I got an invite. Why don't you come with us? And I thought, well, if anybody's going to write about a book about Nicola Goddard, wouldn't it be neat to talk to the people that helped raise her as a little girl? That could be a start. And if nothing else, it would be an adventure with the couple that I had come to know and really enjoy their company. So when I got back, you know, I'd spent time there in this magical place where Tim and Sally were treated like, I don't even know if you could call it royalty. It was almost like the gods must be crazy, like the deities came back, and the rituals around them, the reverence for them, the impact that they had on this place was absolutely astounding and moving. And the impact that Nicola had, I sat down and spoke to so many people that hadn't seen Nicola in more than 25 years, who pulled out photographs of her, who cried as they told me about the day they found out she had died. And she was their Nicola. So, you know, I came back to Canada. I found myself a Toronto literary agent who beat me into shape and showed me how to write a pitch to a publisher, and we found a publisher pretty soon after. And then I spent the next several months on this new journey of my own, learning as much as I could about Nicola and all the many worlds that she traveled in. I went around the country. I met other members of her family, her extensive network of friends and colleagues, each person providing me with a piece of the puzzle to this complex individual who, with all of life's choices before her, chose the path of warrior. And as a civilian, again, it was a learning curve for me. Nick was, I came to find out very quickly that she was funny, she was kind, she was compassionate, she loved fiercely all the people in her life around her. The more I learned about her, the more I realized my own ideas were really out of step with the reality of her life, at least. And, you know, some of the conversations I had were the most challenging of my life. I'll never forget the sacrifices made by people like Tim and Sally, Victoria and Kate, and people like Jeff Fair, Nick's second in command, who is still grappling with the guilt of standing 4 inches away from her and not having a scratch on him. But they helped me to rebuild those battlefield experiences, and it was a magical experience. Every time I turned a corner, every time I picked up the telephone, people would say, "We'll talk to you for Nick. We'll do it for Nick." And Nicola herself, she was a prolific and talented writer. That was probably another thing that just sparked my imagination and got me so excited from day one. As a fellow writer, I read these letters, and this woman is brilliant. She has a beautiful way of turns of phrases, of ways of looking at the world, of pouring her heart out. You know, she started writing at a very young age, and Sally kept so many of those letters and emails that she wrote to her family all through her early years and in university at Royal Military College. And I was able to just get such a sense of this wonderful human being and why she believed in what she believed. And then I met her husband, Jay Beam, and I was warned by a few people. He's not a talker, and he wasn't. We spent a couple days together. I came back a little despondent because I would sit across the table from a smiling Jay who just looked down and smiled when I was trying to ask him about, you know, some emotional things. And then I got back to Calgary, and Jay started emailing me back and forth, and I suddenly realized Jay could say what he needed to say in an email as long as I wasn't staring across the table from him. And one day he casually asked in one of those emails if I'd like to get the love letters. Oh, he had about 40 or so. Do I want to see them? Thanks to those letters, another layer of Nicola Goddard, I was able to write so many things that happened in Afghanistan from her perspective, and also to just get such a full appreciation of how deeply she loved. And thanks to Jay, Nick's four-member forward observation team, these men had guarded her dignity and her memory so fiercely. They did confide to me later, they didn't want her memory to be exploited. They were worried, the first female, what would people do with this? After talking to the first one, the more gregarious of the four, Sergeant Dave Redford, he got back on the phone and a couple days later and he said to me, yeah, I've talked to the guys. They say they'll put their 2 cents in and we'll do it for Nick. So thanks to all these people, just these multitude of people, close to 100 people that I spoke with, I was able to tell this story of a woman in all her complexity and brilliance, a Canadian war hero who does deserve to be remembered by her fellow citizens as such. She was a woman in a man's world, but she left for all of us a detailed account of the universal experience of the 21st century soldier. She didn't just transcend the gender divide. She also turned our stereotypes of soldiers on its ear, or at least mine, naive me. I believe that this is one of the lasting legacies of Captain Nicola Goddard. You know, thanks to her writing, she left us the gift of seeing into the heart and mind of a soldier. She defied stereotypes of that military mindset of blind obedience, and she lived a truly examined life. Writing the book, I made sure this book was not a polemic on war. I wasn't going to get on the shoulders of Nicola Goddard to spout any opinions about the war. It's really the story of an individual's life and a life well lived, and also the many sacrifices one makes to serve their country. But I think that if you find in reading this story that you find yourself becoming more interested and engaged in our country's involvements in places like Afghanistan and future ones, you would have Nicola's support. As Sally said to me just the other day, we were talking about this very subject, and she said, well, Nicola would want people to discuss and debate. That's what we did, and that's what she was fighting for the right to live in the kind of place where you can live freely and speak your mind. Not long ago, I heard from a friend who just finished reading the book, and she called me in tears, and she said she couldn't understand why she was so upset. She said the book confounded her in a way she hadn't expected. She said, I knew this woman was going to die. And as I read the story, I found myself falling in love with her, becoming her friend. I loved her sense of humor. I loved her strength of character. And then I found myself hoping against hope, turning the pages, hoping she wasn't going to die. And then I grieved, and I cried and cried when it finally happened. And I don't understand why I felt that way. I think that particular comment that my friend shared with me, I think it highlights another aspect of Nicola's legacy to her fellow Canadians. I think in the telling of this one person's life story, a life lived in all kinds of exotic places, and with a perspective formed through all sorts of interesting, educated, free-thinking people, We come to care deeply for this one soldier. And I'm hoping that in doing so, we come to care deeply for all soldiers, for all of these young men and women who are putting their lives on the line for what we've told them Canada wants, what's important to Canada. I was thinking about this, not sure if I should talk about this at the end, but as corny as it is, and forgive me, everybody, if it is, but I was thinking about, all the questions I have been asked, just getting back to these numerous interviews. One of the ones I kind of found the most difficult and maybe the easiest was someone said, and it was only one interview that this question actually came up, and they said, if you could meet Nicola, what would you say to her? Well, I would have a whole lot of questions. I'd probably want to have a gin and tonic with her and a laugh. But I guess I would say thank you. Thank you for being who you were, and thank you for giving us all the opportunity to become acquainted with who you were and why you felt the way you did and held those beliefs that you took to your grave. As her dad said at her memorial service in Calgary in 2006, he was relating something one of Nicola, I believe it was Shannon, had said to him. She said, the world is now divided into two kinds of people, those who knew Nicola and those who wish they had. And that's what I hope that with this book, that the rest of us in that other camp just feel a little bit closer to the lucky ones who knew and loved Nicola Goddard. Thank you.
Aren't we lucky to have writers? Thank you, Val. That was beautiful. We learned so much.